We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. Merry Christmas Eve, everybody. I hope that you are having a wonderful holiday season. If you are listening to this in real time, today is Christmas Eve 2024. It is also my two oldest children's birthday. My daughter turns 5 today. My son turns 7. We are going to the pet store and getting ourselves some glowfish. Say a prayer. My children desperately wanted another animal, and I was like, listen, first of all, the 3 of you are animals. Second of all, my husband is also an animal. Third of all, we already own 2 dogs. Like, what more do you people want from me? They wanted a cat, I tell you that much. But luckily, my husband is allergic, so I can just blame him. But we're getting some fish. That's what we're doing today to keep the holiday festive. You know, go to the store and get some glowfish. My 7-year-old, this is his gift, and he wants to get 3 glowfish, which we have approved, and they are going to be named Ron, Hermione, and Harry from Harry Potter. Isn't that the cutest? Makes me feel like I did something right in parenting. But anywho, I'm glad you're here. We're not having a Christmas episode because a lot of you will likely listen to this after Christmas, since I would assume most of you are busy today with family and other things. But if you're here, I am so glad. Thanks for sharing in the holiday season with me. But today we're talking to Erin Port of Simple Purposeful Living. She is a gem. I love her. There are certain people you just connect with, and Erin and I connect on so many levels. We have similar passions. She's an author. She's writing her first book with the HarperCollins. Like, excuse you, book deal. Amazing. She also has a podcast, Simple Purposeful Living podcast, and just signed with my podcast network with Cloud 10 Media. So now we're part of a pod family, a little pod squad. Is that too Love is Blind for you guys? Anyone? No? We also have sons who are adopted of a different race. So we've connected privately over that. She's just a gem of a human, and she's a mom of 4 and founded Simple Purposeful Living with the mission just to help you simplify your life. You do not have to overhaul your life to love it, is what she says. As you'll hear in today's episodes, Erin really focuses on these little tweaks at a time, and she also has a full line of paper print products, including her best-selling meal planner. Her blog is fantastic. You can get some good recipes on there. Anywho, I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Erin Port from Simple Purposeful Living. Erin, this is such a treat because I got to go on your podcast, Simple Purposeful Living, recently, and now you're on mine. And, you know, this is just the swap of my dreams. Would you let everyone know, since they might not know you, who you are and kind of what you're all about?
Well, I'm Erin Port. I live in a small town in Iowa. I'm a mom of 4, 15-year-old, 13-year-old, 9 and 7-year-old. Been married to my husband, Scott, for 18 years. They're my pride and joy. But my main mission in life is to help busy women simplify their lives, right? And every time I tell somebody that, they're like, wow, there's a lot of people that could benefit. I was like, yes. But I founded Simple Purposeful Living when I had young children at home, and it just seemed like life was super overwhelming and complicated. And I had a heart for women because my aunt died at a very young age, leaving behind a 3 and a 1-year-old. And I knew life wasn't guaranteed. I wanted to maximize every moment, and I wanted others to do that too. But so many of us are busy managing our lives. We're not really even enjoying them. I had an email one day from a lady who said, I can't remember the last time I laughed. And I just thought that is the greatest tragedy in life if we're not enjoying it. So I've made it my mission to be the big sister energy nobody asked for, the cheerleader. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but I am the Yoda to the Luke Skywalker. Like, I am just here to champion people and help them to simplify in simple ways.
I love that you know this about yourself because that is the wonderful energy that describes perfectly how I feel about you. Like whenever
No.
we talk, I feel like you're a comforting older sister who is rooting for me and has so much wonderful wisdom and is relatable. And so that makes me really happy that you're kind of
Mm.
aware of that about yourself. And I hope that you feel encouraged by that because you are so good at what you do. And I think that coming at this simplification from a place of wanting to help people enjoy life
Mm.
and having seen that with your aunt, you know, knowing that life is short. I feel that way having lost my mom. When we lose somebody and we see that firsthand, we do interpret the world entirely differently.
Mhm.
And it is empowering, it's also freeing, and it is more joyful. And so because we feel all those things, we want to share it with other people. And I think that you're doing a beautiful job of that.
Mm.
And so one of the things that makes what you do so special. So I focus on decluttering, and obviously that goes into simplifying.
Mhm.
We're in the sister worlds, but we're not
Mhm.
exactly the same. And one of the things that you focus on when it comes to simplification is breaking it down in a way that feels manageable and easy through the term tweaks. And I love that this is your signature. So would you share a little bit more about what you mean by making little tweaks to simplify life?
Well, I first came about this when I was a teacher. So I was a first grade teacher. And anytime I would go to teach a lesson, the first time was never the best, right? But I would teach it. And then right after, I would make myself some notes like, next time you teach this, tweak this or tweak that. And my practice would be refined and better every single time. And I thought, if it works in the classroom, could it work in our life? And so I have this analogy of, we're all just walking around in life like in a dark room, right? And I come along with a flashlight and I just turn on the flashlight, and now you can see the exit, right? It's that little tweak of a flashlight. That's all you need to get out of the room. And that's the power of a tweak. And I always tell people, this isn't a new concept. Tweaks have been around forever, right? Edison, when he invented the light bulb, all he did was had to tweak the filament, right? That's all he had to do. And then he had a light bulb. Sarah Blakely of Spanx, all she did was tweak a pair of pantyhose and cut the feet off the bottom. But oftentimes in our human nature, and I know you're a psychology junkie just like I am, but we overcomplicate things either because we think simple is too easy. We want to feel in control, so we add more steps to the process. We feel like if we're working harder, then there's more value there. But really, that's all just kind of a falsehood that gets us to manage life. It leads to burnout, it leads to overwhelm, it leads to stress. And really, the simplest tweak, moving the needle, right? Like, what can move the needle to make my life a little bit easier, a little bit simpler? It really is the tiniest tweak that can do that.
It's so cool, like you said, how one thing can change an entire process to make it easier. And it's so true. I feel like even in my own life, and I try and be really intentional, it is so easy to get swept away, like you said, in managing life and like
Mm-hmm.
trying to get through life instead of enjoying life. And if we just step back and say, what can I adjust that would make these kind of more logistical things
Mm-hmm.
easier so that they don't take up as much time, so they're not as annoying to do, so that I can get out there and actually enjoy life, then I think we'd be surprised at how much that is possible. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is not a requirement that our homes and our lives overwhelm us. I
Mm.
mean, we're human, so life is hard. I
Yep.
don't think we can get out of that one. But we do have it within our control to say, I'm not going to do it the way everyone else is doing it. I need to just figure out what's going to work for me. And so on that
Mm-hmm.
note, would you share maybe some of your personal tweaks you've done in your own life that have made home or schedules or whatever it might be easier?
So one of the things I would say as you like think about tweaking your life is the very first thing is it's counterintuitive because we just want to keep rolling along on the train. We don't want to stop. But actually to stop and ask yourself, what is something simple I can do to make this easier? Right? And once you start to train your mind, I mean, this is the way I think about everything in life. Like I'm always, because of course this is my job, but then once you start, you're like, oh, how can I make this easier? And how can I make that easier? So let me give you an example. Just this week, I do time block to-dos. I saw it on your Instagram that you do something very similar. So you do certain things on certain days, you kind of set it out. Well, I added another email to my email list that I'm sending out on Tuesdays, and I added it to Monday because that made sense until it didn't. And I've overloaded my Mondays with so many things. And the last 2 Mondays, I've just felt completely overwhelmed at the end of the day. And so I sat down yesterday and I said, how can I tweak this so it's not so hard? Well, I write all of my other emails on Wednesday. So why not just write this email on Wednesday? Such a tiny tweak. And now I'm not going to be so overwhelmed next Monday. So there's an example. Here's another example from my family. We were having a really hard time getting out of the house last year on time. And like, what is the culprit, right? So first of all, you stop. Okay, what is the hang up? Like, is it our whole morning routine? Probably not. It was shoes. The shoes were the culprit. So all I did was when my son got dressed in the morning, he put on his shoes. Now, this might be a deal breaker for some people who can't don't want shoes in the house. But for me, getting out of a house on time without like losing my cool with my son was way more important than shoes in the house. So, and it was such a simple tweak. So we just had a conversation. When you get dressed, you put your shirt on, your pants on, and your shoes on, and then you have breakfast. And then we got out of the house on time. I mean, that's how simple these things are. One last one, and then I'll be done.
No, keep going. I love these ideas.
Can you tell I'm so passionate about this? So I never washed my face at night, full disclosure. And then I got into my 30s and the fine lines, like you're like, I should have been washing my face in my teenage years, like all the girls are now, all the teenage girls. I'm like, good for you, girls. But anyway, I realized the tweak I needed was I just needed to change the time in which I was doing it, because I was doing it. I was thinking I was going to do it right before bed. I'm tired right before bed. I have 4 kids. I'm exhausted. The last thing I want to do is do that. So I was doing it when I got my kids ready for bed because I was brushing their teeth with them, when they were little. And so I just started while they're brushing their teeth and I'm, kind of overseeing, I would wash my face. Well, now my kids have kind of gotten to the point where they get themselves ready for bed. They've kind of worked themselves out of needing my assistance. So now when I tweaked it again, and when I finish getting my kitchen done, I wash, start the dishwasher, vacuum it up, and then I go to my bedroom, I put on my pajamas, and I wash my face. And not only does that mean that I'm going to do it, it signals to me that my work is done for the day and I can relax. And I have no problem going to carpool or picking up kids, with a sweatshirt over my pajamas and no makeup on. That doesn't bother me. If it means the tweak is I'm now washing my face at night.
It's so great. Oh my gosh. I don't even think about actually hearing you say that makes me think about how I recently changed how I take off my makeup too. And it has made life so much easier. Like I was so caught up in, I need to do this like 3-step plan and I need to use X kind of thing to take off my makeup. And I just realized that's just not for me. I can't do it. And so I found myself some, like ethically sustainable makeup wipes, and I just do a makeup wipe and call it a day. And that's better than not doing anything at all. You know what I mean? And that simple tweak has meant that my skin has cleared up so much because I stopped being overwhelmed and then just like not taking my makeup off at all and just like ruining my pillow and my face. And now it's just so much better, And so I think that's really awesome. I was thinking about some of these tweaks in my own life too that I'm going to share just to give people ideas, because I love that one about the shoes. Gosh, that is, I feel like every parent's hang up in the morning is like, why is getting shoes on so hard? Yes. And like you said, we all have to do what works for us in our homes. But yes, I love the idea of they already got those on when they're eating breakfast, and then it's not as chaotic getting out the door. So for us, I wanted my kids to eat healthier foods. We took out snacks from our, I guess our cupboard. So snacky snacks, not that they can't have a snack after school, but we don't do goldfish anymore. Any crunchies is what we used to call them, pretzels, that kind of thing. We have now taken those out. And so I used to kind of keep our fruit on the counter in an area they couldn't reach. And now we have fruit bowls on the counter, easy for them to reach. I also put the cheese sticks where they can reach them. And they used to not be able to reach any food, but they're of the age now that they can do that more responsibly. And I want them to eat those things. Those are their snack options. And so that tweak of putting the bowls of fruit where they can reach them has made our snack time way healthier and easier to do. Another tweak was I thought everyone needed to use like an electronic shopping list. Like everyone tells Alexa
Mm.
to what they need to add to their shopping list. And for me, I just never wanted to go into my phone and look at that list, and it just
Mhm.
bothered me. And so we just do a running whiteboard on
Yep.
the fridge, old school style. And we have
Yep.
both my husband and me have our to-do lists up there, and we have our shopping list, and someone can write it up there easily. And we just take a picture of it before we go to the grocery store, and that works well for us. Another tweak that we did was I will not vacuum if I have to plug it in. So we have a cordless vacuum, but the battery runs out relatively quickly. And so I found this tweak online where you can take a battery from a power tool in the garage, like a power saw, or I don't know anything about tools, but whatever. And my husband did this, but I showed him the video and I was like, look, if you put this on the vacuum, if you jerry rig it, then the vacuum will last literally forever because that battery is so awesome. And so we did that, and that's made my life so much easier. We keep another big one of getting out the door for us on Sundays. Where's everyone's Bibles? Like that,
Mm.
because Bibles are one of those things that don't really have a home in most
Yep.
people's homes, And so but Bibles are beautiful and they're part of our family culture. And so now I have a basket on the entryway table where we put our Bibles. And so it's
I
easy
love
to
it.
just grab those on the way out the door. So even if I pull out my Bible for my quiet time or I'm doing a study or whatever, I just put it back in the basket. It has a home and we're never running around on Sunday mornings. So those are just some that I was thinking of too, because it's fun to think about those because it encourages you to do more, like think of
Yes.
different ones. Like you said, I love that question of how can I just make my life easier? Like it's such a broad question, but it's also such a specific question to every single thing we come across in our routines and in our lives. And on that note, actually, there are a lot of misconceptions
Mm.
about what it means to live a simple life or to
Mm.
simplify life. And I was hoping you could share kind of what those misconceptions are that you hear and a new way to reframe it.
Yeah, so one of my big things I always say, and I told you I just finished writing a book, and so we're talking about like what is the essence of the book, and I really want somebody when they read the book to realize a simple life is not a boring life, it's a vibrant one. Because what we're doing is we're simplifying the things that we have to do, parts of our life that we have to do, so we make space for the things we want to do and appreciate, right? So actually my simple life is a beautiful one because I'm spending time with my family and I'm spending time on things that bring me joy and happiness because I have the space to do it. So we're simplifying the management of life and the management of things. It's very similar to what you do with decluttering, right? Like you're trying to declutter so you can make space for the things that bring and add value to your life. It's the very same thing with simplification. And I think what we've been told by society with our overconsumption and more things are going to make you happy is that we still don't feel that way. And now we're just, I'm sure you deal with this with decluttering. Now we're just consumed by all the things we have to manage, right? A busier schedule. And again, it goes back to that idea that if we're working harder and we have more things on the calendar and we have a bigger house and we have more things, we're going to be happy. And what we're finding is that's not the case. And so, how do we, to use your words, pare down, simplify so we can focus on the things that bring us? But the thing that people have to figure out for themselves, and this is where it gets tricky, is because I can't tell them, is what matters to you, right? Because some people might really enjoy fashion. Some people might really enjoy cooking. So others really enjoy reading or traveling or whatever it is. You have to figure out what a vibrant, simplified life looks for you. And from there, that's where you tweak. And the problem is people just want like a one size fits all. And I'm like, I can't help you with that because you first have to do the hard heart work of what matters to me. And I think one of the things I help people do that's very practical in that is I say, sit down and write in your gratitude journal for 7 days and just be recording what brings you joy. Is it a family dinner? Is it snuggling with your kids before bed? Is it your walk outside? Is it your Marco Polo with your sister? I'm just listing things that bring me joy. Those are the things that matter, right? So we're going to prioritize those things and then we're going to simplify everything else so that those things can be a priority in our life. And that to me is a simplified life. It's really being very focused on what matters and then simplifying everything else so we can get to that.
Am I the only weirdo that when someone starts talking about breathing, I immediately start becoming very aware of my own breathing and then how, like, if I just stopped, then I would die? I know that's ridiculous, but then it's like, then I'm very aware of every breath I take. And then it feels very labored. And then I'm like, how do I do this without thinking? And then I get distracted by something and I move on in life and I'm just a human who breathes without thinking. But anyway, no, just me? Okay, well, listen, Americans take about 20,000 breaths a day. Don't ask me why that just says Americans. That's the stat I was given. I have no idea how many breaths people in other parts of the world breathe. Okay. But Americans take 20,000 breaths a day. And sadly, we spend an average of 90% of our time inside. Are you all thinking about your breathing now? And like, how do you make sure you keep going? It's okay. You're going to be okay. You'll definitely be okay if you start making sure that the air you're breathing is clean, because our indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air. And these invisible little air pollutants that absolutely exist, but we don't see, can cause respiratory symptoms like sneezing, congestion, scratchy throat, and even more serious health problems like lung and heart disease. And this podcast is all about decluttering and not over-consuming. And one of the things that happens with all this overconsumption is an input of more air pollutants into our bodies, into the air, into the world that we live in. And this is why I'm so grateful for our air doctor. I truly mean this with all of my heart, because it filters out 99.99% of dangerous contaminants that would otherwise have to go through our lungs. We're talking allergens, pollen, pet dander, dust mites, mold spores, even bacteria and viruses. Moms, you tired of getting sick from those little gremlins that go to school and bring it back and sneeze on you? This will help, unless they sneeze directly into your eyeballs, in which case I cannot help you. And then the big kahuna for me is PFAs. Gets it out of the air. I don't want them in my water. I don't want them in my air. I don't want them in my body. The Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't love it as much as I do, which would blow my mind, but you can just send it back for a refund minus the shipping. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code PARING, PARING, and you'll receive up to $300 off an air purifier. And also, exclusive to you podcast listeners, you'll also receive a free 3-year warranty on any unit, which is an additional $84 value. So lock in the special offer by going to airdoctorpro.com. That's AIRDOCTOR pro.com, and use the promo code PARING. There's no I in pair. PARING. You're living proof that living a simple life or simplified life isn't boring. I mean, you have this amazing platform with Simple Purposeful Living, a podcast and products and an entire business that you run. But I think people have this vision of like that show, The Simple Life, with, gosh, it was like Paris Hilton and Nikki, or what was her name? Nicole Richie. Or in it, you know, like back in the day, as if being simple is a bad thing. And what we're saying is that, like, you're saying, no, you're simplifying the parts of your life that you don't want to have to deal with. It's just another word for saying, I'm going to make my life easier. I'm just going to, you know, and I think that your practice of writing out what makes you grateful and letting that be an arrow of the things to focus on and simplifying the rest is so powerful. I actually did something similar this past weekend. I've been feeling just a little overwhelmed and a little anxious, and I couldn't really identify why. And so I was like, I'm just going to sit down, and literally I asked myself on my notebook, what makes me happy right now? And what am I not looking forward to right now? And as I wrote those out and was really honest with myself, it made it abundantly clear where I needed to change directions and what I needed to do differently. And like you said, it's all subjective. Like, you can offer simplified meal plans on your website, which you do, which are awesome. But also, someone might love to cook. My husband loves complicated recipes that either he comes up with or he finds, right? Like, he finds great joy in that. While someone like me would be like, yeah, no, please give me a 5-ingredient, 1-pot meal. You know what I mean? So simplifying for one can take the fun out for another. And you know, sorry to keep talking here, but you bring up so many points that make me feel passionate too. Like, it reminds me of the book Subtract. Have you read that book, Subtract, by Leidy Klotz, by any chance?
No.
Oh, you would love it. Add it to your list. It is very psychology based, which is really fun, since I know you love that too. But, you know, he kind of, in a sense, is talking about tweaks in that book and how we often overlook subtracting in order to solve a problem, instead of we think we need to add to it. And a really fascinating study they did was they kind of put this Lego structure in front of the participants of the study and said, hey, you need to make it look like this. And they could solve that by moving a whole bunch of pieces and getting it to look like that. But if they took the time to look at it, if they subtracted just one specific piece, then it would immediately look like they were supposed to make it look. And almost all of the participants overlooked subtraction in
Wow.
favor of this adding, right? And so that's what you were saying earlier too, is like you try and overcomplicate things like,
Yes.
okay, I'm overwhelmed by laundry, so I need to get a better system and I need to get better
Yes.
baskets and I'm going to separate everything out, in these different baskets so I know when's doing what. I'm going to do someone's laundry on Monday, the other person's on Tuesday, right? And we add all these ideas when really you might just need to take away folding and you just say, I'm just not
Yep.
going to fold the kids' clothes, right? And
Yep.
that simplifies it enough that it gets done. And so anywho, I'm on a whole tangent now, but I love that you're like, no, simplifying life isn't boring. It's just making it easier.
And I think you bring up a good point. And what I shared at the very beginning is it's our human nature to overcomplicate and add. So we have to purposefully tell ourselves, how can I subtract? How can I simplify? How can I make this easier? And be okay with a super simple routine. Like, it doesn't make it any less worthy, because I think, it's maybe we think, oh, it's cuter for the gram if I have do. And, I had when we were building this house, it was kind of eye opening to me because I said something, I can't even remember. And he goes, is that practical or is it just for the gram? And not that that's the way we're living, but I think sometimes subconsciously we're worried about what other people think, or we feel like, if we're not doing X, Y, and Z, then they're going to think, like we're taking life easy or we're not trying hard or whatever, when really it's just a simple thing can really be the answer to our struggle.
Yeah. And that's real though, right there. I think a
Mhm.
lot of us think we're not doing things because of social media, and we don't realize how much that actually is influencing our overcomplication. I
Mhm.
have seen a shift in my own self, and I've always thought I'm like a very intentional person. I don't do things just to like show off online. But about a year ago, I stopped showing my kids online. Well, I still do a little bit on my personal page. That's just people I know in person, but even there, like much less. And obviously, with my public platform, I started a year ago, and from the get go, have been like no kids online, and that's just a personal one for me.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that, like, yes, I've gotten more into like a paring down lifestyle and a decluttered lifestyle and conscious consumption. So that plays into this. However, I suddenly care way less about matching pajamas on Christmas,
Yep.
about having family Disney shirts if we go on vacation or something like that. And I'm like, was I doing that for the gram? I thought I was just
Mhm.
doing it because I want my kids to have these wonderful, fun memories of us having these traditions. And some of that's true. However, I think that the proof is in the pudding, that if that's
Mhm.
no longer something that excites me, then there was an underlying motivation that I wasn't even conscious of when I was
Mhm.
putting my kids and my family online, and we overcomplicate things because of this comparison. So I think
Yep.
that is some sound wisdom and something to think about.
And we're all dealing with it, right? Like those content creation glasses, like, ooh, this would be good to share with my friends. It's just like, okay, if that's the only reason I'm doing it, then maybe I need to rethink it. So, very good point.
Right. Yeah, yeah, we're just human. It's a human need to belong, and social media has
Yes.
made that way more complicated. Well, in your experience, how does simplifying life really contribute to even better decision making and productivity beyond just the joy in figuring out what matters?
Well, I think simplifying removes the distractions. It makes it easier to focus on what truly matters. So when you are like, just like with decluttering, you're clearing out the clutter. You have what matters in front of you, physically and mentally. You have a clearer vision of where you're going to spend your energy, where you're going to spend your time. Having a simple routine frees up that mental space to be able, right? This is not a new statistic, but we make on average 35,000 decisions a day. When we simplify and take some of those decisions away, we can make better decisions on the big decisions of life, right? And when I'm not worried about the 40-step laundry practice, I can just do the laundry and walk on and do something else. And you brought up a good point that I have this business, and it would not have been possible if if I hadn't simplified other parts of my life. And I made that decision to simplify other areas of my life so I could focus on this. And so I think if we have a passion or we have a project that really matters to us, then simplifying everything else helps us to be able to focus on that more clearly.
Totally. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have this podcast if I hadn't simplified other areas of my
Mhm.
life. And yeah, I appreciate that insight there, because we do make so many decisions on the daily that we don't want to be making decisions about things we don't care about. Like that's what I think that gets to me oftentimes, especially if my husband asks me a question about something I don't care about. Like, I don't care. Please make that decision for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I can get on edge these days because I just like, I don't want to have to think about more, because especially as a parent, we're already making a billion decisions about things we probably wouldn't think about if the schools maybe hadn't told us, or our kids weren't interested in it, or whatever it is. And so sometimes I feel like I'm making so many decisions about things that I don't care about that I'm not going to do that to myself. Like, I'm not going to overthink and over deal with things that don't matter to me.
You know, with the holidays coming, one of the things for me with, thinking about like better decision making is just the tweak that I made that I think is the number one tweak when it comes to holidays is ask your family what matters to them, what traditions matter to them, what things matter to them. Put those things on the calendar so they get done, and let everything else go. And if you see something on your line that you're like, oh, that's great, maybe bookmark it for next year, but don't feel like you have to do all the things, because that is going to just be a recipe for Scrooge mom, right? And I've been there. I've done that before where I'm like, oh, we have to go see Santa, and we have to do the gift to the angel tree, and we have to do, and it ends up being like I'm doing it, but there's no joy, as opposed to like, okay, these are the 4 or 5 things that really matter to our family. We're going to focus on that and then let everything else go for this year, right? And then no for now doesn't mean no forever. If you have time or capacity, great. But I think, like you said, seeing so much online and then being like, oh, sometimes it just takes that practice of being like, okay, but what matters to me? And going back and, like I said, stopping the train and saying, okay, and then putting it on the agenda.
Totally. Gosh, there's so many things I want to ask you. Let's talk about relationships, because I know that's something that's so important to you and to me. I mean, to all of us, really, are our relationships. So how can simplifying life contribute to more meaningful connections with the people we love, or with just people in general?
I think, again, if we think about if we're just busy managing life, what I found was as I simplified, I became more present in the moment. And have you ever been someplace where, I mean, I remember years ago, I was at the apple orchard and I was 5 miles ahead thinking of, I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to do that. And as I've simplified and pared down and taught myself like the tomorrow will come, or I have a routine for that, I can be more present in the moment, which makes me a better mom, a better wife, a better friend, because I'm right here with you right now. And I think that that's just a good thing, because people can tell very quickly, are you with me or are you not with me? Right? Like when I'm talking to my husband and he's focused on the football game, I'm like, he's not listening.
Totally.
And so I think when we're so busy and overwhelmed and managing life and all the things, we're just not really like, the wheels are always turning. And so simplification, like if we think about a computer screen, I think of it as like we're closing the screens. Like, okay, that's taken care of. And oh, I don't have to worry about that. And oh, that's done. And oh, and now my screen is clear and I can be present. Now, are there things that pop up? Absolutely. But is my screen chock full of like 150 notifications and things coming at me all the time? No, because we've pared down and we've simplified. And I think that only makes my relationships better. Am I perfect? No. Do things still pop up in my mind? Absolutely. And I think too, like going back to that gratitude journal of like knowing what matters and how you connect with people is really important. Like for you, it might be something different than me, but for me, it's family dinners, cuddling up with my family to watch movies, taking my kids in carpool and talking side by side because they're teenagers now. And there is something about talking side by side as opposed to face with teenagers and sharing things. And so just really being present in those connections, and then simplifying in other areas, because I'm like, this is what matters. This stuff doesn't.
What you said about family dinners, yes, that's important to us too in our family. And something I read online, and sometimes I get overwhelmed by the like perfectionism of parenting based on expertise and experts online,
Yes.
so take it all with a grain of salt. I don't follow many, or actually I don't think I follow any at all, because I'm like, I don't need to be following any parenting accounts in order to still sometimes come across parenting content. So I'm not going to just add to it, But something that I read that was helpful and has kind of become front of mind as my children have reached the age of extracurriculars is, if family dinners are important to us, then that means we can't do all the extracurriculars that involve not being home every evening, because you can't do those and have family dinner, and you kind of have to choose. And again, it's not better or worse. Everyone will land somewhere different. Someone else
Mhm.
is going to have grown up doing sports with their family, and that to them is more important than family dinners because that bonded them to their parents. And I
Mhm.
respect that history. For me, I grew up with family dinners, and I think it's one of the reasons that I had such a healthy relationship with my mom before she passed. My brother is my best friend in the world. My dad, my stepmom were all very close, right? And I'm not saying family dinners are the only reason for that, but I think that it added to the culture of love and connection in our home,
Mm.
and that's important to me. So we don't do it perfectly. We can't have family dinner every single night together. Like Wednesdays, my husband has to meet us directly at church on Wednesdays. So we eat in the car on the way to church.
Yep.
And, sometimes Monday nights, my daughter has gymnastics at 6. But other than that, we're having family dinner together, right? Like we've made a decision. My son is going to do swim, but he does the one that happens after dinner. His swim, he's going to stay up a little later and go to bed a little later on a school night than we would prefer, in order to make sure that we chose the time that still allows for family dinner on swim
Mm.
nights, And so that's simplifying our schedule according to our highest value, as well as everyone just gets
Mhm.
one extracurricular at a time. You can't do gymnastics and
Mhm.
dance, and we're going to be
Yep.
really mindful about what time those things are. Let's dive into the final 2 questions that I ask everyone on the podcast. And the first is, what is something that you are currently paring down?
Okay, so right now, I know you live in sunny Florida, but we're in this transition in tug of war in the Midwest of like summer, winter, and fall's supposed to be in there too. And so every fall, I go through my kids' clothes and I pare down. We go through like my kid. I'm a big on independence with your kids. Not that we're a parenting podcast, but anything. My son had special needs grow when he was little, and one of the things was like the more independent things you can let him do, the more he will gain his fine motor skills. So as a result, I move all of his like out of season clothes down low so he can get himself dressed, move things that like isn't gonna work, like shorts and tank tops and all those sorts of things, up and out of the way. Everything stays in their closet, but then we just kind of pare down. We have some friends and family that we give our hand-me-downs to, and I like to do that, get those out of our. So that's one of the things we're doing. I know you're also getting ready for Christmas and preparing, but we have a local organization that sets up a Christmas room where eligible families can come and shop both decor, toys, games, all of those sorts of things. And they always request it come earlier than later so that they can use it for this holiday season. And it motivates me as I'm decorating my house that if it's not something I'm willing to put up this year, to know that somebody else could benefit from that in our community. And same with our toys. And so that's something else I'm paring down and paying it forward and hoping that it brings joy to somebody else rather than just sitting in a box in my house collecting dust.
I love that. I love both of
Mhm.
those things. Those are fantastic. Okay, and what is something that you are currently looking forward to?
Well, I mean, I'm a holiday junkie. I loved your post the other day about like being the in between, right? Like I am a simplification person, but when it comes to Christmas, it's just magical. I love the memories. I love the Christmas movie nights. I have lots of sentimental things for Christmas. My mom gave me her Christmas dishes. We collect ornaments from places we visit, and so putting up the Christmas tree and getting to reminisce with my kids. People think I'm crazy, but I like to have everybody home for Christmas decorating. So it's been on the calendar, November 15th. The kids pull up the Christmas tree. We'll decorate it that night and then watch. It's a tug of war between Elf and Home Alone every year, but we'll watch one of those movies, maybe both that night. And we're really looking forward to that.
Oh, that makes me so excited for the holiday season. I'm the same way. Like you said, I made a post recently about this balance, because I think when we live, hold on one second, buddy. Sorry, everyone. My 3-year-old has joined the party here. But I think that when we live a decluttered or a simplified life, it's easy to take that to the extreme or think that we should. But like you said, no, we're just making room for the things that matter to us. And so if
Mhm.
we love celebrating the holidays, there is nothing wrong with like having some really fun traditions, or maybe there's still gifts under the tree, and that's okay, right? We're just being
Yes.
more intentional about the way we're going about it, instead of just like letting Christmas throw up everywhere and stress us out, right? Like, no. Well, last thing is, where can everyone find you online to follow along?
Well, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living. It's a tongue tie. I should have thought of that when I did it, but simplepurposefulliving.com, Simple Purposeful Living. We're on YouTube. Instagram is where I hang out a lot. And then, of course, we have a full line of paper products at shop.simplepurposefulliving.com. And as you mentioned, we have a podcast, and I have a book coming out in 2026. Book publishing takes forever, but I'll be sure to let people know when it finally hits the stands.
Everything you do is so exciting. So yes, I will have all of that in the show notes. I know it is a lot, but you and I have talked about how much we love being able to put out so many different offerings to people. And so thank you for all that you do to help everyone. And thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you. I know our hearts align and that we just want people to live their very best life with the one that they have. So that's my joy, and I know that's yours too. So thanks for having me.
You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face. So thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at paring_down, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.